everyone, and welcome to Super Dwarf Sunday for September 5th, 2021. It is Labor Day weekend in the United States, so happy Labor Day, everyone. I'm Lori with Behavior Education at Spirit Keeper Equine Sanctuary. This is Ceti from Reach Out Reptiles. Yes, Ceti is in his humid hide because he is in a shed cycle. So we're not going to bother him, but I will let you take a peek at him. It's kind of hard to tell when he's in blue because of his coloration, and he has light eyes anyway, but I guarantee you he is in blue and he's going to shed hopefully this week. And next month he'll be able to make a more formal and active appearance in Super Dwarf Sunday. But this week I thought I would go over my top reasons why I think Super Dwarf Reticulated Pythons make an excellent family pet. Clint's Reptiles put one out this week, and Garrett Hartle at Reach Out Reptiles put one out this week. And so I thought, I don't really feel like putting a lot of time and effort into researching anything this week. And I don't have to spend time and effort and research to tell you that Super Dwarf Reticulated Pythons make excellent family members. So I'm going to go over my reasons why, and this is completely 100% my opinion and how I feel. And you can take it or leave it. And you might have a different opinion, and that's okay. But I love my Super Dwarf. I love TC, and I'm going to tell you why. Hi everyone, I'm Lori, and here are my reasons why Super Dwarf Reticulated Pythons are in my top 5 favorite snake species list. Well, what I care about when I choose a personal snake for myself, not for a research project, not for any kind of behavior or training trial I'm doing, but just a personal snake for myself, here's what I look for. Most of these things are under engagement. So out of my top 5 qualities that I look for in a snake, 4 of them are related to how they engage with the people and with their environment. So I look for the activity level. And I like a high activity level in my snakes. And I look for what types of activities they engage in. One of my favorite activities to watch is climbing, and I also like to just see the snakes moving and roaming around. I also look for visibility. How often are they visible and when are they visible? I like to see my snakes a lot. So I like to see my snakes even when they're sleeping or resting, and I absolutely love to see my snakes when they're active and awake. Now, for me, it doesn't matter if they're active and awake day or night because I'm active and awake day and night. I usually sleep from about 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. So if the snake is nocturnal, that is perfectly fine for me. I look at temperament. Are they bold? Are they proactive? Do they have a high level of resiliency? Are they curious and attracted to novelty? That's what I like in temperament. I also look at trainability, and sometimes that's not easy to assess in a snake prior to me getting it, but if I'm familiar with the particular species, I kind of know what their trainability is like. But I want to look at things like what type of learner are they highly adaptable, and are they able to generalize behaviors that they've learned to different environments and different contexts. And then the thing that's sort of not related to how they engage with people and the environment and activities is the size. I really like snakes that are a medium length and a medium width or girth. So I don't want a really large or giant snake, and I also don't like working with really small snakes that much. I like a decent medium-sized snake. Now here's a list of things that I don't care that much about when I'm deciding whether I'm going to get a particular snake or not. It isn't that I don't consider these things. I do consider these things, but they're way down at the bottom of my list of things that are important to me when I'm choosing the perfect snake to join my family. Handleability. I know that is super important to a lot of people, but it doesn't matter to me if the snake has a high handleability or not. I have snakes here that I love dearly and I interact with a lot and that I train and whose behavior I really enjoy observing, but I hardly ever handle them. I don't have to handle them to train with them. And when I'm training with them, we're engaging with each other in a very meaningful way, in a very interesting way. And I don't have to handle them to do that. And then obviously I don't have to handle them to watch their behavior and just see the snake being themselves. So that's not high up on my list. It doesn't matter to me one way or the other if they have a high handleability or not. Color and markings are at the bottom of my list. Obviously, I have my favorite colors and my favorite patterns and markings, but I don't get a snake based on what they look like. I always get a snake based on their temperament and behavior and personality. So color and markings is down there at the bottom. And then the preferred diet and the climate needs of the snake, they're really not important to me because I'm going to give the snake whatever it prefers to eat, and I'm going to make sure that it has the climate it needs once it gets to me and once it's living in my home. I'm not going to base my decision to get that snake on what it eats or its climate needs, because I'm going to make sure that I change my behavior to accommodate that animal once it's here. And then cost, unfortunately, I have to look at cost, but it's at the bottom of my list, and honestly, it's the last thing I usually look at. So I look at everything else about why I might want a particular snake or not, and then I look at how much it costs, and I really weigh everything, and then I'd make a determination if I think I can make that happen or not. So how does Super Dwarf Reticulated Pythons measure up for me? I'm going to give the species a report card, and I'm going to give TC a report card, and I'm going to let you know what letter grades I give him in these different categories that I just told you were pretty important to me when I'm considering adding a snake to my family. And remember, these are my personal considerations for if I'm not working. I'm not getting the snake for a training trial. I'm not getting the snake for a behavior study. If I'm getting the snake just for me, just to be my personal pet, my personal family member, these are the qualities that I look for, and these are the things that are important to me. And so this is how I grade Super Dwarfs, and this is how I'm going to grade TC. So based on TC and the other Super Dwarf Reticulated Pythons that I have a little bit of extra knowledge about because they're in the homes of friends of mine, and those other retics are Giles, and Giles lives with Summer, Grace Mitchell, and then she also has a retic named Billy that she hasn't had that long, but I hear about Billy and Giles all the time. Stephen Lewis recently got a Reach Out Reptiles retic named Midas, and then my good friend and colleague Danielle just got a Super Dwarf retic from Reach Out Reptiles named Aurelius, and I hear about these retics all the time, and we talk behavior and we talk training, and I see how they are. So based on the behavior of these others and based on TC, as well as based on what I hear from a few people that I do some behavior consults for through Messenger and things, and some training consults for, here's my opinion of Super Dwarf retics. They get an A+ for activity. They have a very high activity level, and TC in particular is active and awake a lot of the time. He engages in interesting activities that I like to see, like roaming and climbing. He basks, he swims, and he likes to watch what's going on around him. So A+ for his activity level. A+ for visibility. He is highly visible. He is visible most of the time. Even when he hides, he tends to hide in an opaque container versus one that you can't see through. And if he is in a hide that you can't see through, like see out of or see in, he's usually near the opening where he can see out. And I'm always able to see him. It is so rare that I don't see him that if I walk by his enclosure and can't glance in there and see where he's at, that I'll actually open it up and check on him to make sure he's okay. That's how visible he is. He gets an A in temperament. And so you might be asking, well, why not an A+? Well, temperament in animals, and that includes people, tends to be kind of in the shape of a reverse bell curve. So they tend to be grouped, individuals tend to be grouped at one end of the spectrum or the other, like either more towards the shy end of the spectrum or more towards the bold end, more towards the proactive end or more towards the reactive end, etc., with less individuals in the middle. TC's actually kind of in the middle, and hearing about these other super dwarves like Giles and these others that I mentioned, I think they do tend to be more towards the middle. Now, I think they're on that bold, proactive, more resilient half of the temperament spectrum, but I think they're closer to the middle than some other species. And I say that because TC, while he's very curious, he's bold and proactive, he's pretty adaptable to different situations. He is resilient, but he's not as resilient as some other species that I work with. It takes him a little bit longer to bounce back from adversity, and he's very sensitive. So he's just a very sensitive animal. He's not super reactive in that everything bothers him, but more things bother him than some of the other species that I work with. And that's the reason I give him an A for temperament. And some of you may give him an A+ for temperament because of those same traits. But for me, I really like those bold snakes that are very resilient and bounce back quickly from adversity and really aren't that sensitive to what's going on in the environment as far as it's going to bother them very much. And TC can be a little bit sensitive, and he can take a little bit longer to bounce back when something adverse happens to him. That brings us to trainability, and you see here that TC gets his first B. Now TC learns very quickly, but he has a mediocre level of motivation sometimes. At times, he's not all that motivated to work and earn reinforcement. So he can adapt very well to different situations. He can generalize the behaviors that he's learned to different contexts and different environments, and he retains what he's learned very well. He just sometimes lacks the motivation to train and to do the behaviors I'm asking of him, and that's why he gets a B in trainability. As far as size, for me personally, he gets an A+. He's just the right size for me. He's been growing pretty slowly. At 2 years old, he's just about 4 feet long and around 600 grams. He is at a size now that's easy to manage. And I expect even when he's full grown, he's going to remain a manageable size for me within the parameters that I find manageable, which are like 4 to 8 feet. So he gets an A+ for size. And then it's worth mentioning, even though it's not one of the things I personally look at when I'm deciding to get a snake or not, but I know it's something a lot of families look at when they decide to get a snake or not, is handleability, and he absolutely gets an A+ in handleability. It's not something, again, that's crucial for me when I'm considering a snake, but TC is extremely handleable. At times, he even seeks to engage with people, and he will come up to me, or he will come up to other people, and not only physically touch me or climb on me, but he'll just watch what I'm doing. And he is actually the most handleable snake that we have in our family of snakes, and he's my first choice if I'm going to introduce a visitor to a new snake, or I'm going to allow somebody to touch or handle a snake. It's always going to be TC if he's up for it. I'm not going to go and look for him and force him out. I usually don't have to because TC usually always wants to come out. Now, all of these factors, of course, are based on the snake being raised properly with respect and consideration. All right, other things that are very often important to my clients that I look for when they're asking me for advice on a snake species to get. So this isn't necessarily my list, but these are things that are really common when I talk to other people and ask them what they're looking for in a snake and what their expectations are. And so here's how TC and other super dwarfs that I'm aware of score under these categories. They're easy to feed, and they're pretty much going to eat any type of prey item you offer them, so they get A's in those categories. They're available in a lot of different color varieties, and they have a lot of different pattern choices, so they get A's there as well. And then they're awake many of the hours that humans are normally awake. I generally see TC awake mid-morning and midday and then late evening. And so he gets an A in that category. And then the climate requirements are relatively simple. The reason I put a B here is because if you don't make sure they have enough access to water to stay well hydrated, or water to swim in or soak in, or a human environment, they can have some difficulty shedding. And so that's why I just put a B there, but otherwise they're really pretty easy to take care of. So it's important that you know what's important to you. Make a list, be honest with yourself about what your expectations are and about what it looks like in your mind to have that family member snake, to have that pet snake. And then make sure that you're getting a species that is going to match your expectations based on behavior, not based on just you think it's a pretty snake, because the snake you think is pretty may fit that category, but might not fit any of your other expectations. So please make a list and be honest with yourself about how life with that snake looks like for you. And I've helped lots of people pick out species that are appropriate for them based on the list that they come up with. I think that Super Dwarf retics are intelligent, sensitive, and they develop resiliency as they learn and grow. I actually have nothing bad at all to say about them. I love them. I love TC. I will say they're not for you if you handle snakes roughly, if you don't provide them with ample space or exercise, if you're not going to do basic training, and if you're not a kind and respectful person who's going to be considerate of what your snake's preferences are. These snakes are sensitive, and they don't have a lot of innate resiliency, but they are very good at learning to be more resilient as they learn and grow. But they can't learn and grow in a healthy way if you don't treat them respectfully, if you don't handle them kindly, and if you don't acquiesce to what their preferences are. Listen to what they're telling you. They are very clear with their body language, and you can tell through their behavior whether what you're doing with them is acceptable to them or not. So please try to respect their wishes. Here's TC's report card. So I've got the categories here on the left. We're going to start with activity. He has a high activity level. He really likes to roam around a lot and climb. I give him an A+. And just as a note, he's pretty active mid-mornings and late evenings. In the category of visibility, he has a high level of visibility. I see him behaving like an arboreal and semi-arboreal snake. He gets an A+ because I love snakes that climb. I seldom see him on the ground. The only time I see him on the ground is when he's moving from one location to another and he has to use the ground to get there. In temperament, I say that his temperament is moderate or kind of in the middle. He's curious and sensitive. I give him an A for temperament, and he has sort of a middle level of resiliency, but I've seen his resiliency increase as he's gotten older and as he's learned more and he's gained more confidence. I rate him as moderate in trainability. I do targeting and stationing with him. I give him a B only because sometimes he lacks motivation. And then his size is perfect for me. I give him an A+ for size. He's got a medium length and a medium girth, and it's just right for me. For those of you who care, which is probably a fair number of you, he gets an A+ for handleability. I would rate his handleability as very high. He's friendly, calm, engaging, and he oftentimes seeks to engage with people, and he likes to engage with his environment, whether physically or just by watching and looking to see what's going on. I give him an A+ for a great family member. I hope you all enjoyed that, and I really hope that it makes you put some thought into what you look for in what would be the best and perfect family snake for you. Maybe something different than it is for me, but I definitely think that you need to make a list of your expectations of your snake. You need to be honest with yourself about what those are, and then you need to pick a species of snake that is going to suit you. I realized looking back on the intro that I sounded lazy when I said I didn't feel like researching anything this week, but I'm really struggling with a math class that I'm in. I had ear surgery this week. I've got sutures in my ear and it's really painful and I'm quite fatigued. And then TC is in shed, so I thought both of us are just kind of out of it this week. I'm just gonna do a video that is easy for me to do because all I have to tell you is my opinion, and I also thought it was a lot of fun to really think about all of the reasons why I love TC. Thanks for watching. Until next time, always be kind and love your animals.